Welcome, everybody. My name is Madelyn Hammond, and I have the pleasure today of having a conversation with Heather Kruse, Chief Human Resources Officer at Viewpoint School in Calabasas, California. For those of you who may not know, Viewpoint is considered one of the best private schools in the country, and a good part of that is due to their phenomenal teaching staff. And today we're talking to the person who oversees HR for the school, but also comes from our industry, where she worked many years for Rogers Cowan, CBS Television, and Paramount Pictures. Heather's been doing HR her whole career, and boy, has it changed over the years. Let's talk about that with her and a bunch of other stuff. And for those of you who are watching on Zoom, feel free to ask questions during the conversation, and we'll get to as many as we can. And I'm just thrilled to have you with us today, Heather. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yep, you bet. I wanted to first start and ask you a little bit about your backstory, because I find it very interesting about how you made the switch. As I mentioned in the intro, you're with CBS, you're with Paramount, Rogers and Cowan. Then how did you make the switch from entertainment, which you knew so well, into the great unknown? And how did you even find out about the job at Viewpoint? So tell us a little about that.
So it's definitely a crazy journey that I've had in entertainment for over 20 years, I would say. Starting my career with Paramount Pictures, and then, for several years. Being in the hustle and bustle at Rogers and Cowan for 3.5 years, running their entire HR department, really by myself, with an assistant that came in a year after I was hired there. And if you know Rogers and Cowan, it's really 24/7, 7 days a week. The PR world is insane, specifically in the entertainment and talent side.
I would agree.
Yeah. And then really, being a native of California or Southern California and being born and raised in Los Angeles, if you've been to LA, which I'm sure, your viewers are either from LA or East Coast maybe, but the traffic in Los Angeles, as we all know, is horrific. And, after being in the hustle and bustle and entertainment for so many years and traveling, I had an office at Rogers and Cowan in LA. We had an office in New York. In New York and London. So there was a lot of traveling every month, and there was just really no downtime there. So what ended up happening is I got a call from Viewpoint School. I know people on the board here. I have friends who have their kids at Viewpoint. And because I live in the San Fernando Valley, I decided to just listen to an opportunity that was available at Viewpoint to be the head of HR for their school. And of course I knew about Viewpoint, but never really had been on the campus, didn't really know that much about it, except it was a highly academic school. I got a call from one of the board members and said, we've got this opening in HR. We would love, Heather, I know that you do this commute to Century City every day. I was spending 20 hours a week in the car alone to and from work. It was 2 hours each way. I lived 22 miles from the agency in Studio City, and 2 hours in the morning. So I would start my day at 7 a.m. in the car. I would be talking to my New York office, and then my day would end around 6:30. I'd get home at 8:30. That was every single day for the last 3.5 years at Rogers. And then being in the studio, it was the same hours. Industry hours are usually, 9 to 6, a lot longer than that. And I have my husband that works in entertainment as well. So he works production hours. That's 12 hours a day. When I got the call to go to interview at Viewpoint, I thought, oh my gosh, how could I go to education? I don't know anything about education, really. That's not my forte. Entertainment's my forte. Will I be bored? Will I miss the hustle and bustle? Will I miss being in the production world and being on set every day? But do I want to make a change in my life now, where my son at the time was going into high school? My daughter was going to be graduating middle school. And they had been raised by a nanny since they were born, basically, who was picking them up from school every single day, dropping them off at home, doing their homework with them. I was disconnected completely for the majority of, their teenage years. And I thought, I've got to get more involved, and I need to be closer to my kids' school in case that there's an emergency. And I need to do a change in my life.
Right.
So I did. And it took me a month to really decide whether or not I was going to take the opportunity at Viewpoint. And once I did it and I met everybody and I realized what the job entailed, I took a risk. And it was the best thing I ever did. I took a work-life balance. I got those 20 hours back in my life plus more. Working with educators is completely different than working with entertainment folks. It's a different world. It's not the corporate world where there's a lot of red tape. We get things done here. I do a lot of coaching. I am a full cycle recruiter on top of it. I do a ton of hiring. And I have my hands in everything. And that's really the perfect job for me. I mean, when I left entertainment, I really wanted to run an HR department, which is why I went to Rogers Cowan. However, it really did suck the life out of me for the 3.5 years there. And
let me ask you this. What kind of support did you get from your husband, your family, your friends? Because I've had people say to me that they oftentimes want to do something like you did, and then the people closest to them are the ones that are more afraid than they are for taking such a change.
So I'm a risk taker when it comes to that. In different areas, in my personal life specifically, I moved overseas. That was a risk, but it ended up being great. I am a moment person, also, like living in the moment of what makes you happy. I'm not about, and I talk to my employees about this all the time. Like, if they're not happy about something, then don't waste your time. Be passionate, really passionate about what you want to do. And I can tell you, I've had interns that have come to me that have graduated from USC and they're gigantic, go into finance or be a lawyer. But they wanted to be PAs on television shows making $12 an hour, but it's what made them happy. And you have to do what you love. If you're passionate about it, you will be really successful about what you do. I love HR. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I'm a people person. I like to make people happy. Communication is key. I'm a big communicator. You have to be transparent in the work that you do. But I had a ton of support, a ton.
Did you? Good. What about, let me ask you this if I could. What about if you're making a switch, sometimes you have to take a cut in pay. It's just the way it is because you're going from a high level position where you've been many years to kind of, it's just like anything else. So how do you, how do you get your head around that? Because oftentimes people will stay in a job that they're unhappy with because they just cannot deal with taking that cut in pay.
You got to get over it. You gotta tighten your belt a little bit, and you have to say, listen, what is worth it to me? Is it my sanity and my health, or can I be without, going to all these dinners or buying this or buying that or whatever the case may be? If you can do it, do it. It will change your life. And I think that's really what the point is. I mean, you don't want to be in a job just because of the money. It is not going to make you happy. You want to make a difference in the work that you do. And if that means taking a cut in pay and you can still live, then you take that risk. Because once you show that you can do a specific job and you're passionate about it, you will climb that ladder. Trust me. People at the top will see what you're capable of doing, and you'll probably make more money than you possibly imagined being there and getting that money back. But it's worth it. To me, it's worth the risk. If you can make it happen and you can still survive and pay your bills, then don't let it scare you. You've got this one opportunity, you take the opportunity, and you run with it. And that's what I did with the school. And it was the best decision that I made. Do I miss entertainment? Yeah. But did I change my life? 110%. And I have a lot of friends that have done the same thing, that have left entertainment and gone to other industries, nonprofits, and they love it. They couldn't be happier.
Really? Good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but I think you have to think of it too, if you're switching jobs, that you're going to be almost like you're in grad school learning a new trade for a short amount of time, and then you can even leave and then go someplace else. But you will, as you said, make up the difference much quicker than you think.
Yes, and you're happier. You're happier in your personal life. You're happier in your work life. You feel good about yourself that you're doing something. I mean, it's not worth going to a job every single day where you're miserable, where it's sucking the life out of you, where, you know, you want to be able to also make a difference. You want to have that seat at the table. And if that means that you go somewhere else to do it, just so that you can get the experience that you need so that you can climb that ladder, then you go and do that. You get your foot in the door where you need to get your foot in the door in the industry that excites you. You got, you know, we got these stepping stone, these ladders that take us all over in these journeys of work basically. Right. And, you know, you find what really suits you best. But you don't want to be miserable. That's what I tell people all the time. Do something that will make you happy.
I've talked to a few people that are maybe having some second thoughts about going back to their jobs exactly how it was. And you mentioned the commute. There are some people that maybe are like, you know, I never really like during this time, we've had a chance to really think about things, and maybe there's some changes that people might want to make. And during this time is when people are really thinking about that. And hopefully we're encouraging them to get the resume done and to pivot. I know it's an overused word, or to switch to an industry they haven't done, and not be afraid of that. You know, sometimes people are held back in changing careers because maybe they're like, but I don't know anyone, you know, like, how do I start? And there's something about, particularly when you're a certain age, about feeling like you're sliding backward. And as you said, you have to get over the money thing. But do you have any advice for people that want to get into a new field but are really starting from scratch?
Sure. My first thing that I would tell somebody that wants to get into a new, and I tell this to people all the time, even my own, you know, my circle of friends and my family, as they are laid off recently due to, I mean, I know a lot of people that were laid off, and so they're asking me for advice, like, how do I put my resume together and how do I go out there and do something different? So to your point exactly. And the first thing I say is really think about where you want to be. Like, what do you want to be in a nonprofit? Do you want to be in corporate? Do you want to be in entertainment? Like, think of the space that you want to be in so that you will be happy for the remainder of your career. That's the first thing. And then I really, really have used LinkedIn. I mean, I have been using LinkedIn since they started the day of, and I'm very connected to the people that work there because I'm always looking for new things and being able to help people if there's new tools that come out with LinkedIn. But I would get on LinkedIn and I would start researching companies that you're interested in, and I would start connecting to people 100% and put alerts on your phone through LinkedIn on jobs that you're interested in doing. And then you will get those alerts and you can send your resume. It's really about networking, and it's really about making those connections. And right. Have to do that. And if you, I mean, I would recommend that everybody that's on this call link in with me. I mean, I've got over 5,000 connections across the country, basically. And I'm more than happy to help people find work. If there's a specific company, I mean, I am very well connected in the HR world, and I'd be happy to connect people. If you see a job that's available, I'll give you an example at Netflix, and I mean, I'm good friends with the HR team there. So I will get your resume to the right people without going through all the channels. And that's really how you get your foot in the door, and you just take that opportunity. If you want to work in that company, then you take that opportunity and you take the risk and you get your foot in the door. But it's right. Connections, and that's the first step. I mean, I would link in with people that work at companies that you're interested in working for.
But also to do the research and be sure that you know enough about that company, right. Because if you're going to go to all the trouble of doing it, be sure that that's the direction that you want to take.
Exactly. That's why it's a great opportunity for people to really think about where they want their next career to be and what they want to do. And it could be somebody from, you know, who's who's been in marketing and now wants to go to something completely different. I mean, you can do the switch over. I've hired people that have done the switch over.
Have you?
I have, absolutely, I have. And in all different areas of a company.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was, back in the day when I first started my career, it wasn't at all unusual for someone to be like, oh, you did this, I'm going to hire you. I remember I went into licensing and I had never done licensing, but if you know people and they like working with you and you're good in marketing, you can make a switch. But I feel like now people are hiring same. There's no time anymore for a learning curve. The day you start that job, you have to know how to do that job. And so I'm encouraged to hear you say that you do take a risk on people that might not have done something and give them a shot.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely did when I worked in entertainment. Here where I'm cracking that, believe it or not. I have a teacher that wants to move over into another, into a marketing role. And that's like, oh, we've never done that. That's a teacher. And I'm like, no. She's got a specific skill set. Let's let her try and do this marketing position. So now she's being considered for a marketing position as a teacher. And it sends a message to the entire company like, wow, I don't need to be pigeonholed into a specific role. And I think that and if I can be really, blunt and frank here, and transparent, but, there's a lot of HR people that don't go outside their box. And what I mean by that, to your point, Madelyn, is they take the time to look at someone's resume or pick up the phone and call them and just, if it's a referral, to get to know that person. Because the way that I recruit is by referrals specifically, if I get them, but we look at every resume that comes through. If I think that somebody is, may look good on paper, then I'll pick up the phone, or looks good on paper, I'll pick up the phone and call them, and I get to know them that way,
right?
Not specifically by their resume, and that's how you get a chance. I mean, that's how I got the chance to get my foot in the door. But I interview differently as an HR person. I'm not, like I said, black and white. So there's a lot of HR people out there that won't even look at your resume if you don't have specific keywords in them. But that's also if you're throwing your resume out into, a pile of 10,000 other resumes.
That's right. You have to be specific.
That's why it's super key to know somebody to get your foot in the door somewhere so that you can bypass being that needle in a haystack.
But let's talk about that for a second, because being in HR, don't you not like it when someone goes around you and goes to someone and has them? I always encourage people, if the job is posted and it says to apply through HR, to do that and not go directly to a person. I think sometimes it could backfire if you try to overstep or do an end run around HR. What do you think about that?
I think it depends if it's somebody, so let me give you an example. If you're working at Viewpoint and you have somebody that you want to refer, are you saying have them still go through the process and let me find the resume that way without you sending me the resume?
Well, sometime what will happen is people will say, hey, do you know anyone at X company, because they're looking for a job? Yeah. And the days of of someone taking the time to call and find out, I always say to them, well, what is the job and who does it report to? And if I know someone, I'm happy to do that, but no one has time anymore to do the work. The person that's looking for the job has to do the work themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that if the job is posted, they have to, my feeling is that they should go through HR or post it in a way, and if they can use a contact, great. But I don't think that they should necessarily go around. What do you think? That's what I meant. I guess it would depend on the situation.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation. I've gotten a lot of people jobs by going straight to the HR person and saying, hey, can you please consider this person? I highly recommend them. They're very interested in your company. And that is from an HR colleague to an HR colleague. I think that's completely fine.
What if you don't know the person? Do you only do it if you're familiar with the person and have worked with them?
No.
Really? Interesting. Okay, good.
If I'm connected to them in LinkedIn, or I'm not connected to them in LinkedIn, I will still go to them. I don't have a problem with that, and good. I don't think it's inappropriate. Mm-mm.
Now let's talk about LinkedIn one more second, because I want to address some questions people have. Do you recommend the LinkedIn, oh gosh, I can't remember, is it LinkedIn Pro? Do you think that's necessary? Is it,
You're talking about the Premier?
yeah, LinkedIn Premier.
Yeah. So the LinkedIn Premier is necessary if, well, if you want to pay the money so that your resume is at the very top. But with recruiters who looked at LinkedIn, they just type in keywords, and
Right.
then your resume will pop up. I mean,
Okay.
we have access to every single person we pay into LinkedIn, to every single person in the database. So every HR, every recruiter is really using this tool. Nobody is using job boards that much at all, unless they're going to Indeed. That would probably be the only job board. And then, of course, other people steal your job boards. I mean, your postings from other job boards and post on theirs. But LinkedIn is where I find that's where my recruiting is. And that's where most HR professionals that are going directly through LinkedIn. So it's very important to constantly keep your profile up to date, to make sure that you put on there looking for other, new opportunities, and to take every single call no matter what, whether you are interested in the position, whether you're interested in the company. If a recruiter calls you, you take the call no matter what, because you never know where that's going to land you.
Right. When I did the 27 tips to rock in your resume, my last tip, which I think is one of the most important ones, is that if you are thinking about switching to a new career, to emphasize those bullet points at the top, or in other words, to prioritize what you want to do. You have to tell the story and guide the reader to know where you're going. Because if you've done a particular thing for a long, long time and that's all you write, and then buried somewhere in there, no one's going to take the time to figure out that that's really your dream. So you have to be sure that your resume reflects, if you are thinking about pivoting, that your resume reflects that. You agree?
And I agree with that. I agree with that 100%, because that's, if I read that, I would pick up the phone, or I would consider that person for a job. I mean, everybody deserves a chance. That's why we look at every single resume that comes through for any of our jobs, especially when I was working in the studios and we get hundreds of resumes I was getting pinged on LinkedIn every single day, and I would look to see, because I want those employees that are eager. And we have some eager people out there that would constantly, check in with me every single week, because this is what they really wanted. Some people will be like, okay, that's annoying. Let's not do that every single week. But on the other hand, you're like, okay, let me pick up the phone and call this person, because they're really interested in the work that we do in the company, that, in our company. So why not give them an opportunity?
Heather, we got an interesting question that someone was talking about. You mentioned about your long commute and how it just sucks the life out of you every day. Is it okay to be honest with someone if they say, well, why did you leave your last job? I mean, is it okay to say that you
Get
just
that
feel
every day, practically. When I talk to candidates, a lot of the times they tell me, I can't do it anymore. The commute is horrible. It takes me forever to get to work. I completely understand that, 100%. And I feel it. And I don't think it's a bad thing to say to anybody, because anyone who works in Los Angeles knows what the commute is. And, listen, you don't want to spend all that time in the car. It's not worth it.
I get it. I live in the South Bay. This has been the greatest. I'm going to cry when the 18-minute commute goes away.
And a lot of people will. I mean, that's topic of conversation in a lot of HR conversations that I have, is about the commute. Like right now, they're just down the 405, and then you're going to feel the pain again when everybody gets back to work. And
boy, is that true.
That's why it's important, if you're going to make the change, find something close to your house. It's not going to be this horrific commute, but also something that you want to do. And if you can do that, then it's a win-win situation.
Heather, let me ask you two other quick things, if I could. People are always in our industry, as you know, they're so concerned about ageism. What do you recommend in terms of, I get asked this a lot, about whether or not you put the year you graduated college and how far back you should go on a resume. I recommend don't go back, really, to keep it to 2 pages, which I think is kind of the best, unless you've got a ton of, unless there's extenuating circumstances, try to keep it to 2 pages. But to go back 10 years, if you could, you don't have to necessarily go like back to the very beginning of time, especially if you're of a certain age. So what's your thoughts on that, and whether you should put the year you graduated?
I don't think you necessarily need to put the year you graduated. I don't think it matters, but that's a bias if HR people are looking at that year and not hiring you because you might have graduated in, decades ago. But you don't necessarily need to put that. I think you can go back 10 years. I know some people also that have multiple resumes, depending on the industry. I know people that have worked in entertainment and they have an entertainment resume. I know people that have been assistants and they have an assistant resume and then production resume. So depending on where they see themselves and what job they're applying for, they have different resumes. You do not want your resume to be, I even say, I would keep it as short as 1 page if you possibly can at the most. You don't need more than 4 or 5 bullets for each one. And you don't need to talk about your job description in each one of those bullets. Really, it's only the facts of what you've done, whether you did sales and you want
right. It's the chronology.
Boom, boom, boom. That's it. We don't need the job description in the paragraph of where you last worked.
Talking about search words, they're so important. They're so key. So you don't want to do long, lengthy paragraphs.
Look at the job description. See what they're really looking for in the job description and take out those key words that they need in the qualifications and make sure that that's on your resume. And then, and then those are the keywords right there. And then you're in, you don't need a resume.
Do you have any advice for someone entering the job market for the first time and the importance of doing like some tips, their resumes and connecting for them as they enter this job market, particularly when they see these unemployment figures?
I tell these kids that are graduating, and I speak to colleges as well all the time, just saying, once again, you have to network. Once again, I tell them when they're graduating, get on LinkedIn too. Start networking with people, start making connections, start making phone calls. Specifically if there's positions open, see who you can talk to, even because there are, believe it or not, there are people that work in certain departments and certain companies that will take phone calls. If you reach out to them and say, listen, I'm really interested in your company. I love, this is what I want to do, what you're doing in your department. Is there any way that I can set up a call with you for 15 minutes just to pick your brain? And you'd be surprised how many people say yes.
Ah, I love that. That's great. That is good advice.
To it because I do it, and I have HR colleagues that will do it for sure.
And I think it's also about paying it forward. Maybe there's some people that will watch this that can do that for someone else. It isn't just the person looking, it's also to reciprocate and be there for someone that might need to talk to you for a few minutes just to get in the right direction. Maybe it's just to
I do a ton of those. I do exploratory interviews all the time for people. And or people that just get me on LinkedIn that says, hey, can you help me because I'm trying to find my path? And can you talk to me about it for 10 or 15? I don't know that person, but of course I'm going to pay it forward. And of course I'm going to help them. I can take 10, 15 minutes out of my time to help somebody. And I would hope that others would too. But do not be afraid to reach out. Do not be afraid to go get what you really want because you can do it. You can get there for sure. You just have to have the confidence in doing it, and you just have to pick up that phone and make it happen for yourself. You have to make the path for yourself.
Right. Agreed. Heather, thank you so much. I'm sorry that we ran a little bit over, but I just thought you're just inspiring, and you're truly one of a kind. I wish I've never met an HR person like you.